here on the time. Thank you.
So how much time is that?
About 30 minutes, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I'd say leave a few minutes for questions.
All right, my name is Barrett Hamilton, and I work for Best Care Treatment Services. I've worked for them for the last 9 years. That is drug and alcohol treatment, outpatient, mental health, residential treatment, detox, and we've just started a new program, which is a grant from Measure 110, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. It's kind of a hot item, political item. So what it is it's the taxation of the legalization of marijuana, and so all that money is, I think it was supposed to always go back into treatment, but it hasn't been happening. And so with the new Measure 110, it forced some of that money from the legalization of marijuana back into treatment programs. And so the acronym for the new program is, it's really misleading. It's called a BURN grant, or a BURN center. It's Behavioral Health Resource Network. It has nothing to do with burns. So I try not to use that acronym because it makes no sense to anyone. So the idea behind this grant is it's putting money back into a program where we can start doing outreach and see. Usually the amount of people that will choose to go into treatment, residential treatment, outpatient, is very small compared to the amount of people that are struggling with addiction. You know, a majority of the people that are actively drinking alcohol abusively or using drugs would never go to treatment. And so we're ignoring 85% of the population that is struggling with addiction. And so this grant is giving us an opportunity to go and build relationships with people that are unhoused, people that are struggling with addiction, and start trying to remove some of the barriers that they have so that they'll start to feel better about their lives. And then in turn, hopefully, will, with time, some I think will right away will want to get, into treatment. Some it may take a while, and there's going to be those ones that aren't going to want to ever do it, But we're trying to get to that group of people that if we can build relationships with them, and then when they're ready, and try to remove some of those boundaries, those barriers, so that they feel like there's hope. And then when they're ready, we can act then. Right now, if you want to get someone into treatment, into residential treatment or detox, if you call, there might be a 3-week waiting list. And so if any of you that have ever dealt with anyone that's struggling with addiction, if you tell them, okay, like they say, I'm ready now, and you say, okay, in 3 weeks you can go. In 3 weeks, they don't want to go anymore, something else is going on. And so it's really important to try to act when they're ready. And so this also enables us to hire more people so that we can have rapid access. So if someone says, hey, I want to go to treatment, we can try to get them in there right away. Instead of making them wait 3 weeks, telling them, they want detox. Well, just, we'll get you in there next week. Hopefully we can do it sooner. And so what I will be running is called the Engagement Center. It's going to be called the Taylor Center. Even though I work for Best Care, it's going to be called the Taylor Center. And it's a place where people can come in. They can still be in active addiction or still drinking, as long as they're not causing a ruckus or being disruptive. But, we're not going to ask them to be sober to come in there. And then we will try to meet with them and see what we can do to help them. And a lot of times, I've been doing this right now out of a van. So we've been going out to the different homeless areas and meeting and building relationships with people. And a lot of people, even something as simple as getting an ID, they can't get an ID. So if you don't have an ID, it's really hard to do anything else. I mean, without an ID, you can't get food stamps. And if you can't, and you can't get a job if you don't have an ID or a social security card. So there's these barriers that are constantly there that causes people to just, forget it, I don't even want to do it. And so hopefully they can come in there, we'll have a shower in there, they can take a shower, we'll give them some food, and we'll sit down and we'll have peers, people that have lived experience with addiction, that have suffered from addiction themselves and now are in recovery, and try to say, hey, what can we do to help you better your life? Whether that's get an ID, get a birth certificate, get, tattoo removal. I asked for, when we got this grant, I got to ask for things that I thought could be helpful, and if you have like a tattoo on your face or on your hands or your neck that you feel is holding you back in life, we have funding to help you get that taken off. If you have an older criminal record that is holding you back, I have the ability to help you get that expunged. So you can come to me, I can print out the paperwork if you qualify for, hasn't been long enough since those charges, and a couple other criteria, and I can print out all that paperwork for you, and I can take you to the courthouse, you can turn it in, you don't have to do anything. You just sign the papers. And these are the kind of things, I struggled with addiction for 27 years. And so in that 27 years, I spent a majority of those years in and out of jail or prison. And it never once stopped me from doing drugs. I would just get out and go right back to that life. But I would always tell myself, well, I can't get a job because I have felonies. I can't get a place to live because I have felonies, or I can't do this because I have tattoos on my neck. I had all these excuses. Some of them were excuses, and some of them were facts. Why I couldn't be successful. And so hopefully this is going to be a program where you'll be able to come in and we'll show you that we care. I've been doing this now for the last year in Redmond with the unhoused population, and then now in Bend, which there's way more, for the last 2 months out of a van. And a lot of times I ask, what can we do to help you? And quite a few times, it's surprising, quite a few times people just say, just knowing that you're willing to help and that someone cares is enough, And I know the average person probably thinks, that a lot of those people are homeless by choice, and some are bad choices that led them into that predicament. And then there's other people out there that have lost their housing. If you're living check by check, and one thing goes wrong, you could find yourself not having a place to live. And then it's very hard to live in that environment and not do substances. If you have to sleep out in this weather, it's super hard to stop drinking or stop doing the drugs. And and before this program, if you wanted help, you had to stop doing everything. Okay, if you stop, then we'll help you. Now we're kind of trying to be, all right, what can we do to help you so that you will want to stop? Because you can't make anyone want to quit. And anyone that's ever dealt with that in their family knows, your family always wants you to get sober way before you do, And so, you'll hear about Measure 110 in the news a lot lately, because law enforcement and because what comes along with that too is the decriminalization of other substances, other drugs. And so you'll hear a lot from the police that, it's not working, these burn grants, these engagement centers aren't working, there's been no change. We just got the money. The money was handled incorrectly, and it took way longer for that money to get divvied out like it was supposed to. So everyone, the media, the police are saying, this idea isn't working. We got to give it a chance. Like I said, we haven't even opened the building yet, and so we've already seen good success just in a few months that I've been doing this out of a van. And we'll go and we'll bring them clothes, we'll bring them hot coffee, we will, we have a computer in the van with a hotspot, so if they want to get an ID, we can do it right then. So all the things that we'll be offering at that center will also we'll offer out of that van. So we can go out to China Hat, or we can go out to Juniper Ridge, where these camps are, and help them there. So they don't even have to come into town, and we can say, okay, what can we do to help you? And I found that people that had never even thought about going to treatment or even thought about getting cleaned up start to ask questions, because we're not out there pushing it like, well, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that. Like, what do you want? And then they'll say, well, don't you work for Best Care? Well, yeah. Can you get me into detox? Yeah, I can. And that seems to be working a lot better than telling people you have to do this or you have to do that. You know, and it's there's definitely, I've gotten some people into treatment in the last few months that would have never even thought about going to treatment. You know, it's just not in their, there's so many barriers that they're just, you know. So along with this comes some money for housing, for some recovery housing. So part of this grant is attached to a house for pregnant mothers, for mothers that are pregnant or have a newborn child. They can be there for up to a year. And then some other sober living houses too, that should help people get onto their feet. You know, the decriminalization of other substances, you know, it's a hard one to swallow. Like, how does that make sense? You know, and you know, I can't answer that. I can tell you though that being sent to jail or prison never made me stop doing substances. So that's, you know, that's how the police want to push people into treatment. That does work. I mean, it does work at some point, but you're missing a lot of people, and it's just causing more barriers. So, you know, this is a chance to start working with people, meeting them where they're at, literally. You know, wherever they are in life, let's try to see what we can do to better your life. You know, at this center, we can help you make a resume. We can help you look for a job. I know plenty of places that will hire people with criminal records. You know, all these different reasons, you know, people have for not wanting to move forward and get away from the life they're living. I'm trying to remove as many of those as I can. You know, and so. You know, we'll have, you know, if you can come there, we'll wash your clothes for you. We'll take you to the laundromat. We'll have a peer who's someone that has lived experience come and sit with you at the laundromat, wash your clothes, and talk to you for 2 hours, however long it takes to do the clothes. Like, hey, you know, and building that relationship so people trust you. So when they are ready, they know right where to call and when to call. They feel comfortable with you already. And then we can act then, you know, to get them into treatment and get them back on track. Because living, like I said, living the way that the unhoused people are living now, it's very difficult to, you know, it's hard to get a job if you can't take a shower. You know, it's hard to hold a job if you sleep in a tent. You know, you're not getting good sleep and it's cold out there. You know, I get cold just standing outside the van helping them. You know, and I'm like, I get to get back in the van and I get to go home. You know, and you know, there's I think that the general public in general has a wrong perception of the people that are homeless. I don't think that it's, you know, not everyone, but I think a lot of people, the things I hear are not kind, and you know, I think a lot of people just try to ignore them. I think ignoring it's not going to make it go away. You have to start trying to do something to, you know, at least start funneling a portion of people into a positive direction. You know, you're not going to save everyone, but this is a way to start trying to get to a different group of people that we've never tried to get to before. So I'm sure there's much more, but I've drawn a blank. Yes?
So listening to your very honorable thing you're doing reminds me that the city of Redmond is struggling, trying to figure out if and how to engage with people who are unhoused. Your program sounds unique. I wonder if you made any connection to the city. And
Oh.
if you haven't, you should.
Yeah, the city of Redmond, in the city of Bend, I know the code enforcement officers, the ones that come when, you know, your tent is in the street and they've been, instead of calling law enforcement, they've been calling us. And then we go out there and try to like say, hey, can we help you move this to a safer area? You can't be here, you know, we don't want the police to have to come get involved. And so that's, in Redmond, not really with the city necessarily. But I definitely have been doing this kind of work in Redmond for the last year. I think I was here a year or so ago talking about working in the hospital, doing the same kind of thing, but in the hospital. And then I also started doing outreach in Redmond. So I have good relationships with a lot of the unhoused people in Redmond. And so that's how I knew that I could do this in Bend, because it was working in Redmond for the last year. So I already have those relationships. Now I've just had to start building those relationships with the people in Bend. And then we'll be servicing all of Deschutes County, so that eventually will be LaPine and Sisters, because believe it or not, there's a big homeless population in Sisters. Yes.
Oh, go ahead, I'll go after.
So I just want to say I'm excited to hear this. My husband's a narcotics detective. He's on the Central Oregon Drug Enforcement team, so they're all over Central Oregon. And him and I have these discussions all the time about what he sees, and he says exactly what you say. It's like a cycle of seeing the same people, arresting them, and they go into the system, but there's no treatment for them. And by treatment, I don't mean like you just stick them into a facility and say, you know, now you're clean for 60 days. Like you said, it's the helping them with IDs, birth certificates, showers, you know, the mental health, like rebuilding their self-esteem, all those types of things. And he said that it's frustrating from his point of view. I'm only speaking for him, from, you know, not all law enforcement, but he said, you know, he'll go to the hospital where somebody's OD'd and they will be there asking, you know, how many Narcan pens they can get before they leave. And he's like, it's easier for them to just give them that than have resources to say, you know, what else can we do? Like, is there other things we can do? He says those are the conversations that aren't happening. And like you said, and he agrees that the funding was not put the way it was, where it was supposed to. And now maybe we'll start to see this change with it coming out.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited to hear you say that this is what's going on, because this is exactly what's needed to start a change. So on this grant, is it a renewable grant every year? Is it a 3-year grant? What does that look like for you?
I think that it's, initially it was 2 years, but I think they may postpone it 1 year more of funding because of the way it was rolled out. The people they put in charge of deciding who got this, it was done horribly. So that's where all the bad press is coming from. That's where all the bad stuff's coming from, because it was really handled poorly.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that's why it took so long. We've been planning this for a year and just finally got the money 2 months ago.
But the money wasn't dispersed in areas it shouldn't have been. You still have that income. It just was what, delayed?
Yeah, it just, the money just
Okay,
never
so-
got dispersed.
Oh,
So
okay,
every,
okay.
the whole point of that Measure 110 is every county in Oregon will have one of those behavioral health resource networks. That's the whole purpose of it. So every county will have one. So Crook County has one, Madras, Jefferson County, Deschutes County, and all the counties. So it took a really long time for them to decide who in each county was going to get that money. And so, you know, they've been talking about it for a long time, and so that's why it looks like nothing's been going on, because really, this part of it, nothing. They decriminalized the other drugs, but didn't have a program to fix the problem.
I think that you know, we can drive by an unhoused person or persons that are out asking for money on the side of the street and where cars pull up and stuff. And in, you know, the majority of people in their mind is, why don't they just get a job? Why are they on the street? I'm not giving money to them because they probably have to, and they're doing this just for income. Those are the thoughts, because that's what people have thought for many, many years. I come from the Bay Area, San Francisco.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the worst between Los Angeles and stuff. But you just educated me right now in this meeting about if they don't have an ID or a birth certificate to get an ID, social security card to get all of what is needed in order for them, for people to get the resources and people to work with them. I never thought, honestly, I never thought about, oh, well, maybe they don't have an ID. I just see it as, well, there's someone who's having to live on the street,
Yeah.
not why they're having to live on the street. So this was great that you came in, and I commend you for what you're doing. It's just that is amazing.
There's a lot of people, you know, a high majority are struggling with severe mental health.
Right.
So that's a whole nother issue that needs to be addressed, and that's something that we can offer too. We can help, you know, get them in mental, you know, in mental health treatment, but that still doesn't necessarily solve the problem because there needs to be some kind of housing because there's a certain kind of housing you need to have to house people with severe mental illness.
And the money came from cannabis?
Yeah, the taxation of marijuana.
Okay. Have you, Barrett, have you been working with our safe parking program at all?
No, but I was in a meeting. That reminds me. I was in a meeting with the city at the city council at
Right.
the city council building, the city hall. I was at the meeting.
Russell was there?
Yes,
talking
yeah, and did a
about-
presentation, and yeah, it's
I think I was
great.
there
That's
too. Yeah.
that's something that will start to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Absolutely, because that's another thing too. I never thought of this, that if you're living in a tent or a motorhome or something, and you're in one of these areas where there's, you know, let's face it, some of those people are predators out there. I mean, it's, you know, that's a real thing. It's not like everyone's innocent out there for sure, but you can't leave your tent or your trailer because someone will steal your stuff.
Yeah.
So even if you had an ID or you had a birth certificate, you have to stay there and guard your stuff because as soon as
hard
you
to
leave,
work, doesn't
yeah,
it?
as soon as you leave, someone will steal your stuff.
Yeah.
And so once again, that's another giant barrier. I mean, I've ran into lots of people, if they could do something different, they would.
Absolutely.
And I have ran into some that are fine living where they're living.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, their choice. And so, you know, that's, those people aren't looking for any kind of help. And also the people you see that are on the side of the road with the signs are asking for money, that's not even 1% of the homeless population. You know what I mean? That's really, and not even close to because those are the same 10 people you see.
Yeah.
You know, in Bend and Redmond, it's the same 10 people. So the other, I don't even know the numbers, but the other thousands of people that are homeless, you don't see doing that. And, you know, drugs and crime are a part of some of their stories for sure.
Well, you know, the safe parking program isn't the answer because it's a temporary
Yeah, but it's a
solution
start.
that provides that security you're talking about. And I think you'll find that our city council and our city government is going to be much more supportive now than was the case even as 6 months ago.
Yeah.
We're also getting quite a bit of support now from the county, from our 3 county commissioners. They've given us some land, as I mentioned,
Yeah.
out in Evergreen and 7th. So I'd encourage you to work with those folks too.
So yeah, and so back to the question about the funding that, you know, hopefully, because there's been a lot of pushback. So hopefully when it's time for this funding again, we can get more funding. It won't be as much as we got this time, I'm sure, because they'll want to put it other places, and that's fine. But as long as we can keep what we're doing going, it will be important.
I've seen ads or announcements in the newspaper recently that later this month, there'll be a panel discussion about homelessness. It's going to be at Mountain View Fellowship, I can't remember the date,
26.
26th.
Yep.
It's going to include the chief of police, safe parking representative, Rick Russell, and others, different components to the situation that will have a panel discussion. And there's going to be a big enough space for a lot of audience.
Yeah, and I think in the past, it's kind of, my opinion would be that a lot of it's like, just ignore it, it'll go away. You know, just, you know, they've been moving them in Bend, like they'll go and, you know, clear a whole street, because it's a nuisance. I mean, they're in the street, they're making a mess, I get it, but they're clearing them, and then we'll be out there trying to help them move their stuff, like, okay, well, where do you move? They're, well, where are we supposed to move? Like, you know, and so just making a move doesn't help the situation. Then they just go somewhere else and do the same thing. So there has to be some kind of collaborative thing like you're talking about, for sure.
Have you talked at all with Rimrock Trails?
Yeah, they're part of this grant, so they're doing the juvenile, because they work with juveniles.
And they do a lot of the mental health and stuff.
Yeah, so I think they're part of this grant. There's not just Best Care got it, multiple, I think 6 or 7 different agencies in Deschutes got part of this funding. I think Healing Reins was one. They work with horses, horse therapy, and then a few in Rimrock, and then a few other agencies.
There was a story that ran on the 2nd, it was in the newspaper, and it's just a beautiful story that I ended up sharing at my work, just for everyone to kind of step back and think. But it was a person who is staying anonymous, and I don't know if maybe you had seen it, but is houseless, and went and asked for money on the streets here in Redmond off of Highland, and collected the money. This is a person who does not have a home or a job or anything, raised money and then donated that money to Jericho Road and a couple of other charities. Didn't keep the money for themselves and want to be kept anonymous. Says that he wants she wants it to be from a friend. But here's someone who does not have anything themselves, and they turn that around, and I thought that was a beautiful story.
Sure.
That we sit and we just had Christmas and we celebrated with our families. So I had to share that at work yesterday, because it was like, it just makes you think. Look, you know, what is.
I think it's easy sometimes to just only, because it's right in your face, to just only see the negative and the bad, because it is, it's a problem. And so, so I think that sometimes you have to look a little deeper to see that it's, some of those people are, that can happen to, anyone. That's not counting the ones that are, using substances and are squandering away their life because they're addicts, And I understand that too. I made horrible decisions because of addiction. A choice I made, and it caused me to make more bad choices. But I also know the other end, I've also been sober for 10 and a half years. And in the 10 and a half years, I've gained an amazing life. So I know that it's possible to rise from that. Yes.
A little update on Best Care. So they bought my parents' house, the house I grew up in, to turn into a treatment facility between Walmart and the hospital.
Yeah.
They now have a state grant to buy the 2 acres left there that my brothers and sisters and I own.
Yeah.
And so they're going to buy that with that grant. They're going to put some mental health facilities up there. So
Really?
a lot of new things to
Yes.
come in Redmond to be supportive of.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. Yes. Yeah, Brooks Respite is there now, and then they're going to buy that house. So I did hear that. So yeah.
Way to go, Al.
Way to go, state.
Way to go.
Yeah, it's not. There's no easy solution to the problem for sure, but this is a start in the right direction, and just needs support, from the general public to make sure you get all sides of the story, because there's definitely other people that aren't happy about it.
Barrett, I'd also suggest our new police chief, he came, about a year ago. He's been extremely helpful in working through not only our safe parking program, but this issue as a whole.
Sure.
He comes from Baton,
Yeah.
actually. So Devin would be a good person for you to
Sure.
talk to.
Yeah.
He's actually going to be our speaker next week, guys, too. So be aware.
Is there anything that we can do as a group to help as far as any events you have coming up, donations you need? What can we do to help you?
I mean, we're definitely always looking for warm clothing. So like if you have coats, like so far, all the staff at Best Care, which lasts for a few months, where we're just, if you have coats or warm clothes, boots, or whatever you're not using, bring them in, and then we're just handing those out. So that's definitely always, and I volunteer at Jericho Table every Friday. I'm there, so people know how to get a hold of me, for sure. And so definitely warm clothes are always needed.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. We have a small thank you gift for you.
You gotta get up like in
Oh.
That's all right.
Starting a new job.
Oh, nice.
All right, there we go. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. I guess with that, everybody have a great rest of your week.
Yeah.